Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to LinkedIn Live podcast session. Today, we have the honor of having Senior Vice President uh, with us. He is going to share his knowledge on Abhijit Chakravarty sorry about this. I'll restart. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to our Power of Knowing Forums LinkedIn Live podcast. We are streaming live the session across YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Today we have the honor of having Abhijit Chakravarty, Senior Vice President, Core Networks and Security Operations at HDFC, brings in with a wealth of knowledge and experience on the network and security banking domain. Abhijit has specialized in network solutions design, architecture, SD-WAN, SDN, NPM, EUS data center network and cybersecurity, and enterprise IT infrastructure. Today, Abhijit will be sharing his insights on uh, a topic of strengthening the backbone of core network strategies for financial institutions. Without further ado, I would like to bring Abhijit Chakravarty to the platform. Hi, Abhijit. Good evening. Welcome to
Hi,
our show.
Prem. Good evening.
Sir, a small brief about you or your journey, sir, to the audience.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Abhijit Chakravarty, currently associated with HDFC Bank, and I take care of the core networks and security of the bank. Of almost 30 with telecom, with security, and I've always been in a customer-facing role. That's me.
Thank you for that, sir. Can you elaborate the key challenges financial institutions face strengthening their core network infrastructure? Because banking completely depends on network infrastructure, and you have all the omni channels, the network of the ATMs, everything connected over a network, which is a large infrastructure for any bank which has presence across the India. What are your inputs regarding on the
So I
challenges?
think, I think the first challenge is connectivity itself. Connectivity that you
Hmm.
offer, right? So because uh, the quality of connectivity that you get in a tier one or a tier two city is not the same that you get in a tier three or a four, or maybe even further down today, right? Now that's
Okay.
point number one. So first challenge I think is connectivity itself. The second is the reliability of that connectivity. Even if you get a connectivity, is it reliable? So when I say reliable, I'm not even talking about uptime. So I'm first saying that for the time it works, how good does it work?
Okay.
Then uptime and availability, and the last but not the least is performance. It has to be consistently performing. There cannot be too much of variations, right? So that consistency in performance is very important.
Now, as
Over to you,
yeah,
Priya.
as HDFC has multiple branches, what could be their strategies? How the network is managed? We definitely, I think, we will not have a single vendor. We have multiple vendors, and how is that load balance somewhere, sir? Is that something that we can add to the
Okay, now,
pointer? Because
okay. So first thing is that every branch today we kind of mandate a dual connectivity. Uh,
okay.
and mostly from two different operators. Now, sometimes this can become a problem because you may not get two operators, and uh, you know those two operators may not be your national telcos. You may have to deal with the local
Mm.
service providers or the local ISPs. I think this is one challenge, but we definitely mandate on two operators, right? Two operators, and we ensure that these two operators do not use any common infrastructure between themselves. Because if they do, then having those two links do not serve the purpose,
Serve
right?
the
So,
purpose.
and
Yeah.
and 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 what we have also done is looking at the spread of the connectivity and the network that we have. What we have done is that we have kind of designed very standard SOPs. Now, this has not happened overnight, Prem, and it has kind
Yeah.
of taken us time. So we've kind of looked at what are the different type of connectivities we have. Is it two MPLS links? Is it one MPLS plus one internet? Is it two internets? Is it a VSAT plus an internet? Is it an RF plus an internet? So, we kind of looked at all those
Multiple
permutation
combinations.
combinations. Yes, and then built an SOP saying that this is the,
Okay.
so if this branch falls under this category, this is the SOP that you follow.
Okay. Now I get you. So in a remote area, what is available?
Yes,
And we have an SOP which is there, which talks about that availability and can be adopted. Am I
correct.
right in saying that? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Sir, what are some cutting edge technology or strategies that leading financial institutions are adopting to enhance their resilience and performance of their core networks?
So when you look at core networks, there are two. The network offices that connects your contact centers, that connect your corporate offices, right? So this I would say is the WAN network, right? Now, what is
Mm,
also equally important and more important than connecting the branch network is the data center network, because you may have problem with
yeah.
one branches, 20 branches, not good, but I'm just giving you an example. But if anything happens to the data center, then you have a real problem, right? So adoption of technologies like SD-WAN in the WAN segment. You have SD-WAN adoption of NAS, which is network as a service, can kind of give you flexibility, the scalability, and also the reliability that you are looking for. And on the core network, you've got to look at how do you architect your network inside the data center to give you performance. Now here, speed is important because and also the the data center, and hence an SDN, which is a software defined network where you have granular controls on the network. I think these are the two technologies which are seeing adoption and will continue to see adoption in the financial sector. Over to you, Prem.
Yes, sir. Uh, how is the regulations playing an impact on the design and implementation of core infrastructure, especially network strategies for financial institutions?
Now that's a very good question. See, what about but when there are regulations, you need to be careful, or you need to not careful if that may be a wrong word, but you need to be taking into consideration a lot of important factors, like what is the security posture of the device? How are you hardening your devices? Who has access to the devices? How is the
Hmm.
device being accessed? Are there default passwords still in use? Where do you keep a log of all these devices? How soon
Yeah.
will you be able to in case there is a problem with the configuration, how soon will you be able to retrieve from a backup and restore it to original? I think these are all very critical considerations when you kind of design your network, and these are all related to regulatory and compliance.
Can we have any insider insights into how financial institutions prioritize investments in core network infrastructure amidst of competing demands for resources?
So the core network infrastructure is very important because it becomes a horizontal. It cuts across everything. Now, not only branch, but overall the applications, the servers, the storages, the backups, the databases, everything runs on that network right now. Now, the prioritization of investments into the core network, banks are pretty sensitive. Large banks definitely are. Uh, Point number one is that, do you have a scalable network? How scalable is the network? What is the reliability factor? Uh, what is the design in terms of, do you have a zero fault, a zero tolerant network, in the sense that if there happens to be a fault, what is the minimum time frame you will take to kind of get your services operational? Can that be done automatically without any human intervention in between? All may not happen, but whatever can happen, is that happening? uh,
Hmm.
how would you how how would you create an asset inventory for your network? How will you monitor your network? No, these are all very key priority points when when investments come in.
Sir, what happens is at times we fall into some common pitfalls or mistakes that
Yeah.
financial institutions should avoid when upgrading or optimizing their core networks.
So
What are
common
those common
pitfall.
pitfalls?
So common
Yeah.
pitfalls. One, I think, one to my observation, a very common pitfall is obsolescence management. We
Hmm.
really should look at what are the devices, what is the end of life and end of support of devices, and not only hardware. You have to be careful of both hardware and of that device.
Right.
Right now, upgradation is, is it a replacement of a box? Can be with a similar box or maybe an upgraded version if the similar equipment is not available as an upgrade, right? But what is important is the architecture. Are you
Hmm.
getting any benefits out of your architecture? Will you be able to optimize? Now, say for example, instead of running a bundle of 5 into 10 gig ports, why don't you look at a 100 gig port straight away? That will ease away your configurations, that will optimize your configurations. The network architecture will be neat and clean, right? And identification and configurations and failovers will be very easily done. Then, monitoring a bundle of 5 links. I think those are the points that needs to be. How are you doing micro segmentation, right? So micro segmentation can be done at an application level, can be done at a network level. You've got to take a call there. You've got to take a call there. And all that, do you want to do micro segmentation everywhere, only on critical applications? I mean, those are all questions that will need to be answered. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I
can
got
hear
it.
you now.
Yeah. How do we see the role of artificial intelligence and machine learning evolving into optimizing core network operations for financial institutions?
Excellent question, Prem. One of my favorite topics. So I think, see, what is very important when you are running an operations, in my perspective, are three:
Mm,
detection, reporting, and remediation.
true.
Right now, because a large bank will have a plethora of equipments, will have a very large
Mm,
network, may not necessarily be from the same OEM. Right, you can have a mix
agree.
of equipments. Right now, what is the sort of capability that is required to be able to draw all those alerts? See, what is important is people used to earlier speak about MTTR, mean time to resolve. I have been
Yeah.
for the last 10 to 12 years advocating this term called MTTD, which is mean time to detect.
Okay.
Because if you say that 2 hours, you have to detect it in 15 minutes. Otherwise, how will you resolve it in 2 hours? That 2 hours is out of the window. It's just something that. Now, here is where I think artificial intelligence plays a role. Now, detection is very important. See, what happens is that if you have an attack on the network, and if the traffic flows all the way from the perimeter to the core, and that is where you detect, I think you have already lost it because your network has already
Yeah.
carried that unwanted traffic. You should be capable of detecting it at the edge, right? Detected then and there. So
Yeah.
user behavior, network detection and responses. This is where artificial intelligence is playing packet level of. See, for any network, uh, I would say visibility tool which is worth its salt. It should be able to do session, flow, and packet all at the one time and be able to correlate everything. That's where artificial intelligence comes into play. Capacity management. How do you know
So
what's the
today
capacity in the
morning I
data center?
had an opportunity to
Yes,
Today morning, I had an opportunity to have a session on a topic of AI revolutionizing cybersecurity and protecting you. So, I had that opportunity to have
yes,
a discussion there. We spoke about AI being powered for threat detection. You touched upon a topic on behavioral analytics where it can tell. Then, also, what I understood is predictive analysis is what also you spoke about, right? Kind of
yes,
it predicts something. So I had a overview where if AI can be implemented on a banking system and the system is made aware or the LLM is loaded into a structure of the bank, it becomes easy for looking at whether that is an insider attack, an external attack, what kind of, if the mundane job of incident management becomes easy and incident response becomes easy, is what I understood from the discussion that we had today. A lot of insights there, sir. It was a really amazing session there that I had. I thought I'll add you because it came with role of intelligence, artificial intelligence and machine learning here. Moving on, in what ways can financial institutions leverage cloud technologies to strengthen their core network entities while ensuring security and compliance?
Yeah. So see, what happens is that every I mean, financial institutions or otherwise, Prem, there would be applications that are critical and there would be applications that are not so critical, right? So you've got to first
Non-critical.
categorize them, right? So what are critical applications? Financial institutions have this double whammy of PCI DSS compliance, right? So, and there are applications which are non-PCI DSS, right? So now, when you
Non-critical.
go to the cloud, you've got to be carefully understanding as to what application should I take to the cloud. The first question is, why do I need to move to the cloud? Why should I move to the cloud? Now, why do you move to the cloud? You move to the cloud for agility, for scalability, for availability, better visibility, because the native cloud deployments or the tools there, kind of gives you very high visibility. Orchestration, which means that you can write a script.
Hmm.
Suppose if you want to turn up, resources, which is compute resources, memory, and storage, I can fire one script and turn all that up across three different data centers or three different cloud zones right now. This is the benefit that you get on the cloud. But yes, you'll have to be careful on selecting which applications you want to go to the cloud, because the moment you put applications to the cloud, the requirement of visibility, compliance, and governance also increases manifold. You've got to be capable of doing that.
Sir, I think very valid point, because now I think all the vendors, network vendors at least, are available on each of the cloud providers
Yes,
that are there, and it is a pre-configured stuff that comes into major of the initial configurations that they're tweaking based on the infrastructure that you have is possible there. And you rightly said that we can have one script that fires and it configures all the data centers, and we can plan our resources. One is that,
not
and
only that, Prem, in the cloud. So suppose you've got instances on cloud.
mm,
One is working as a live, the other is working as a backup, or you are doing a load balancing. You can also do a compliance check saying that what is my
yeah.
capacity on this cloud versus what is that on that cloud. Because tomorrow, if there is a disaster to happen and all the load moves there, will it be? So you want to check on homogeneity, you want to check on capacity, you want to check on performance. All those are available today.
Hmm. Yeah, you touched upon pointers where it is scalable. You want to
Yes,
scale it up, you can scale it up. If there is a spike that is going to happen, you can
yes,
just spike it up, and it is on demand. So
yeah,
that is the advantage, I feel. Yeah,
yes.
great insights there, sir. In uh, okay, in what ways financial? Okay, I have taken the same pointers. Okay, sir, what would be the challenges when we talk about cloud? Again, where you said we've adoption, because adoption has been done. Now we have costs which has to be looked at,
Yes,
right? Now, how do we leverage costs when we see? Because while you adopt a cloud, major player is the cost, the
correct.
resources that are there. And if you see, the costs are shooting up. There are certain places where you can scale up but you cannot scale down. Those kind of challenges are there, right?
Yeah.
How do we look at having such uh, issues addressed while we have moving to the cloud?
So I think, Prem, again, this is a very interesting area to be deliberating in. See, when you
Hmm.
kind of adopt cloud, right? One is that you look at scalability, right? But imagine a situation where you only have to scale up and there is no requirement of scaling down. In my own personal opinion, that application or workload is not fit for a cloud,
Hmm.
right? Uh, See, what should go to the cloud? You can put your UAT environment to the cloud, because UAT environment is a non-permanent environment. It changes time and again. There is one project you do an UAT and then you cut down. There is one another project you do an UAT and cut down.
Hmm.
Similarly, DevOps, you can kind of put that to the cloud, right? And kind of do a lot of your DevOps instead of spending on the on-prem infrastructure. But the examples that I'm giving you, Prem, are all cases where you see a scale up and you also see a scale down. And that has to happen. And with good FinOps tools, you should be capable of getting that visibility. And if not, that cost factor is going to kill you. The other piece of it, which is important when you go to the cloud, is what is the requirement of data movement or transfer between the cloud, between two different clouds, or between the cloud and the on-prem data center? Because again, you will be charged with egress cost. You have to be careful of what data will move from where to where, and why is that movement required. Now, if you do not cater to all this, your cost on the cloud is going to kill you.
Sir, what could be the way that we look at security concerns, sir? Because when we have the network that is there, how frequently we'll have to look at the threats that are coming in? And you see, with AI and ML, there are a lot of pointers that come up, new vulnerabilities are listed out. How do we look at those pointers, sir?
So there are a couple of things that needs to happen almost continually. Something which is the vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. That has to keep on continually happening. See, if you say that I will do it in 1 month's time, you are dead.
Yeah.
If you say I'll do it in 1 week's time, also in today's scenario, you are dead again. If you say I'll do it in 1 day's time, also I think you are dead again. So because the attack surface and the number of attacks are so deep today and so frequent, you cannot say that I'll do it on a daily basis. So there is something. I attended this Gartner's security conference, and there is something that they kind of talked about, which I thought I'll share now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something they called as the CTEM, Continuous Threat Exposure Management. You've got to have the capability. See, when the moment you turn up a VM, it has to tell you that how good, bad, ugly I am. If not, and you're wanting to
Hmm.
do it after 2 days, I think you'll have a problem. So, vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, identity and access management, who accesses that VM, how, where, what are the credentials, etc., and all that. Patch management.
Yeah.
I think these are the three most important things that you should be careful about. I'm not even touching about identity and access management, data backups, and etc. and all. I'm not even
Right.
touching them. Those are like given.
Yeah. Sir, with the current how critical is financial institutions to continuously invest and upgrade core network infrastructure as it is rapidly evolving, right, in a digital space?
So I,
How do
yeah,
we see
so
that, sir?
I think this is something, the core network and the security piece of it is very important, because see what happens is security and network go hand in hand,
Hand in hand.
right?
Yeah.
They
Yes.
are hand in gloves, right? So if you have a big hand and a small size glove, it will not fit, right? And
Yeah.
if you have the opposite also, then also there is a problem, right? So see, if you have a very good network, but if the encryptions that you're using are kind of outdated and etc., the performance will be very bad. Your customers will start complaining. Obviously, you'll have your own problems in the core to handle, right? So, network and security, right? What sort of encryption are you using? Why should
Yeah.
we be using this encryptions? What is the speed of that encryption, right? Uh, how fast can I do zero trust assessments? How fast can I check a posture of a device that is wanting to connect to my network? How do I keep updating my signature? See, signature based threat modeling and
Threat
detections are
modeling. Yeah.
gone already, right? so
Right.
so how are you kind of geared up against zero-day attacks, because anything can come, right? So let me give you a very simple example. So suppose NAC, network access control, is one of the most uh, widely used controls that are deployed to connect to a network, right, Prem? Now, if you do a MAC binding, which is that you allow a particular MAC, saying that, okay, I'll whitelist this MAC address and only this can connect to my network. Tomorrow, suppose, let's take a hypothetical situation that that machine goes in for repair and I
Hmm.
jack the Ethernet card. I have the MAC and I use it in my own personal device. I am a valid user on your network now. How good
correct.
is that? So only MAC validation is not good enough today. So you have to be careful about all this. What used to work yesterday is absolutely irrelevant today.
Today, correct. The with the enhancements, you see, any topic, sir, whether it is networks or even at a personal level, the kind of things that are changing rapidly is very very fast, and
Absolutely.
it changes. Yesterday's data is not relevant today to certain kind of analysis itself.
Yeah.
That kind
So
of situations are there, right?
erstwhile, in fact, Prem, since you kind of brought this topic, I'm sure you know about this, but I thought I'll kind of speak this again. Is uh, see, erstwhile, first people used to say data, data during data in transit, which means when
Yeah,
the data is moving, you have to encrypt it. Then
encrypt,
people spoke about data, encryption, data at rest. When the data
rest,
is resting, it is in storage, is when you have to encrypt it. Now we are also talking about data in use. That also has to be
use,
equally encrypted. Otherwise, you never know. Memory leakages can happen, right? And if
memory.
the data encryption during usage is not there, so whatever was happening yesterday is not good today.
Not good today. Agreed, sir. Sir, can you help me with some pointers where how do we manage our interoperability and compatibility between legacy system and modern network technologies?
I
How do
think
we embrace? How do we look at?
see that I think will continue to be a challenge because what happens with the modern systems is in the mannerism that they work, right? The legacy systems do not have that capability to kind of cope up, right? So it may not be possible for modernizing everything at one go, and that is
Mm,
not practical, neither is it doable because you will need, forget the budget, look at the amount of manpower that you will need, right? Whether that will be available is a question mark, right? So my suggestion is that uh, look at the risk, the threat and the risk and the impact when you are running those legacy systems as to what is my threat, basis that what is my risk, and basis the risk what is my impact. Now categorizing it into high, medium, low or critical, you then choose which systems to upgrade. But if Prem, if you ask me, is there a way out where you can continue to survive with legacy system, my answer to that would be no.
no.
You can make a phased plan. As I said, you've got to assess basis the threat, risk and impact, and then gradually kind of integrate. Otherwise, very different. Like say, for example, today, let me give you a very simple example: network management, or when you run any management tool, right? SNMP V3 is the default. SSH is also not very secure, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you are running a system which runs on SNMP V1 or a V2, well, you have a problem. Similarly, if you have a TLS1 or a TLS2, you have a
TLS
problem.
one and two is a
Yeah,
big.
you have a problem. You have a
Yeah.
problem. Now, depending upon the risk and the impact, you take a call, but it has got to be upgraded.
Yes. 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 Sir, what could be some of the regulatory stuffs that regulatory compliance standards influence design of infrastructure of core network with financial? How can institutions stay ahead in evolving regulatory landscapes, sir?
One, I think, is availability,
Mm-hmm.
because regulators are very stringent on availability of network services. So, how is the network designed to provide, if not 100% and near 100% availability? Because that's what you are getting. So, regulators do not say that you cannot have an incident. Regulators are very they are interested to know if you have an incident, how well and how soon can you recover. Okay. Now in terms of security, in terms of how hardened are your devices, I think I spoke about this thing, that does your device have a default password? Uh, are you running service accounts, and are those service accounts having permanent passwords without any password recycle? uh, who accesses these devices from where? Are you monitoring, regulating that? Where does the logs go? So I jokingly always say this with a bit of Hindi, in Hindi language it is saying that log kya kahenge, what will people say?
Yeah.
And security and compliance is very glued nearly to that, just with a bit of a change in dialogue saying that log kya kahenge, what will the logs
Log
say?
kya kenge?
right? So you've got to
Perfectly
be
said.
able to kind of catch that. And so what is very important is that you can enable a lot of logging, you can enable a lot of events, but is someone working on it, right? Is
I,
someone working on it? Are you able to become more predictive? That's
Sir,
the ask
I'll
from the
take a
regulator.
point. I'll take a point here. I was handling a pretty large uh, cloud implementation for one of my customers.
Sure.
What they had done is they were on an Azure shop, but they had logs. You made that point. I thought I'll reference it out here because while you see the logs, people on cloud had planned. They were having their resources all on east zone, and they had resources across other zones also. What happened is suddenly there was a spike in our bandwidth costs. I was
Hmm.
wondering what happened, which did not happen yesterday, and now we are seeing a bandwidth cost, and it was predominantly high. What happened is when we checked, the log storage account was at the east zone of Azure,
Yeah,
but
good
it
move.
was pumping all the data to east only from all the other regions. So when we saw what is the data that it was not having a cap. They didn't put a cap saying that per day this is the log size that I want to send, and I want that to be compressed. You can compress the logs and send it across, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't have that mechanism. Over a period, our costs, which were about 20-30,000 dollars, suddenly spiked to $1 lakh, and we were clueless at the moment. When I started investigating, and we found our bandwidth costs were there, and the log management storage that we used was very high. Right? We didn't have a cap for each of the server. There are for one region we had about 30-40 servers, so collectively four regions, predominantly our customers were in the US.
160 odd servers. Yeah.
So 60 odd services plus, and other countries like Europe, Australia, and other places also we had customers, all were pushing data to the US East account. Now you made a point saying that who looked at these logs? No one were looking. Where
That's the important piece.
that's the important point. Then what we did is we started looking at segregating logs for each of the region, and we brought down the bed. It again suddenly dropped out
Region.
when we said
Yes,
the logs have to be managed at their own local regions.
absolutely. So
So
I
that
just,
is
if you
one thing that
remember,
I thought I'll take in front of you while you had that
no, no. In
pointer
fact,
like who
very,
look
very
into.
rightly observed. See, that is where I said that in the cloud design and operations, you've got to be careful about data movement between clouds, between cloud and data center. What data moves and why? Someone has to keep a watch on that.
Definitely, definitely, sir. Sir, what could be the way partnership and collaborations play to strengthen core network strategies, sir,
I think
especially
very
in the
important
context
piece.
of emerging threats, technology advancements?
I think very important piece, Prem. I think partnerships, collaborations with OEMs, with vendors, forward-looking OEMs and vendors who kind of do not come only to sell a product or a service, but to kind of
Hmm.
look at the infrastructure, make an assessment, and then suggest as to what is to be done. And secondly, see, from a technology perspective, you can achieve the moon, but there is also a business benefit and cost attached to it. Right now, if
Definitely.
that network design or the security posture, how will it enhance my uh, business? How will it help me with my brand reputation? How will it help me with my digital evaluation? I think that story needs to be tied up very well, right? So I think that's the only way to go. I mean, if today, if you want to upgrade from an X to Y, budgets available, I think no one is stopping you. I think what are you solving for? Or I think two questions are important to be answered in my own opinion. One is that what are you solving for? Second is what are you building for?
Building for.
Today, yes. So today in my core networks, Prem, just to kind of give you a bit of an insight and to the audience who's logged into this call, today my network design, the interconnects, when I talk about interconnects, the interconnect between the core switch and the core router, the core switch and the edge router, the core switch and the firewall, the core switch and the load balancer, firewall and load. These are all at 100 gigs today. I mean, I could have easily kept it at a 10 gig or a 25
Yeah,
gig or a 40 gig. I've done it as a 100 gig. Why? Because next 3 to 4 years, I will not need to touch it. Because see, what happens is, when the traffic at the edge increases and you choke at the backbone, I think that's a very embarrassing situation to be in. Now, as I said, what are you solving for? What are you building for? I think two questions that needs answers before you get into that journey.
yeah. So I'll take another pointer here is we were doing a three-way DR replication for one of the banking customers, and I think I'm talking about 10 years back story, because that's where I can relate because it is bandwidth and stuff, right? So we were trying to simulate seeing that how the data is getting moved from primary to nearline center and nearline to the disaster area,
Yeah,
because it's a three-way DR setup. Okay.
understood.
Now with the dark fiber being there between primary and nearline, data was not an issue, right? But we cannot fail over to the nearline system because we had only a system to store data as a storage device. That's all.
Oh, you don't
Not
have
a
a
powerful
replica.
device. Yeah.
Oh,
Just to have storage to storage on the nearline side. If there is a failure because it's on dark fiber, I can start the operations immediately with
sure.
the primary servers being there, pointing out to that and moving. Now to DR, it was the RBI guideline saying that it should not be in the same city, right?
Yes. Near
So
DR and
what
DR cannot be in the same city.
same city. So near line was about 20 kilometers, but near line to DR was about 450 kilometers.
Okay.
Okay, so we had a bandwidth which was a 50 mega, 50 gig
Hmm.
bandwidth and two providers. We bundled it and we started pumping data to move. It never used to get completed, and we always had data which is not moving from near line to data DR side.
And backlogs would be there. Yeah.
Backlog was always there. The general manager of that bank came and said, Prem, I feel there's something wrong. Either your database is not pushing this one, or your storage is not able to push. There's something which we'll have to look at. So we called up for a meeting and we started discussing what
Mhm.
happened and stuff like that. At that time, what we realized was we had a capped bandwidth, and the capped bandwidth was restricted 50 MB was one fourth. So we were effectively having 100 gig with 25 gig that is going on with both pipes being available also. Both are capped bandwidths and we did not find. Then we called up the service provider, said, we have paid full for you. Why are you capping our bandwidth? Sir, the DR drill was to be done based on RBI guidelines saying that you have gone to a new infrastructure and you have to show your capability that you can run from DR,
Sure.
right? That is the challenge we were facing, and we had huge pressure, right? Once the capped bandwidth was removed, the log took only 1 hour to complete.
In fact, Prem, to your point, let me add this observation. See, it is very important to understand, and see, when you talked about collaboration, right? It's very
Yeah,
important for uh, network security, server storage to understand a bit of each other. I'll tell you what. Many a times, the TCP framing configuration in the servers or the full duplex, half duplex speed settings, etc., on the
I'll take that point
cards.
of full
It's
duplex
very
and half
difficult.
duplex. Once you finish it, you go
Yeah,
ahead, sir.
so
I
so
have
so these
another
are
pointer to
these
take.
are these are very important, are always overlooked, and then it will be said that the network is not performing. It is not the network actually. There is something more there. Other thing is that when you are deploying a very high speed link, right?
Yeah,
My suggestion is always use jumbo frames. Don't use the regular 1500 byte packet because that is stone age today, right? So
sir.
you have to look at all that.
No, you gave me pointers that I had to refer that again. So same customer, we had round robin, single this one, and multi mode is what we have
Hmm.
it on the storage side. So what we initially found that also being a challenge. It was on a single mode transaction. The data was going at single channel, and we didn't know about how to configure, nor we had that. At that time the storage vendors had their licensing. If you have to have
Hmm.
a round robin, you have to have a license. If you have
Yeah.
to have multi this one, you have to have a license. So we found that that was one scenario where data was not fully getting moved from the servers to the storage because of the single path. Then what we understood, what we did is we did a round robin. Again, we addressed that issue.
Yeah.
Very critical points that you brought in as a discussion. I thought I'll bring it up onto the
Yeah,
stage.
very right. And that is where I always, kind of emphasize on this point. What are you solving for? What
What
are
are
you
you?
building for? Very important.
Yeah, sir. How does the concept of zero trust architecture apply for core networks in financial
Very
institutions?
exceptionally important. So one is that zero trust architecture. It started off with a discussion call, or the topic came about saying that ZTNA, which stood for zero trust network access. Now,
Yeah.
network access is not the only thing. You've got to have zero trust everywhere, right? So
Yes.
whether it is the network segmentation, whether it is the connectivity between applications. So when you are kind of doing a network segmentation and you put multiple applications into say one segment, there also you've got to question, does this application need to talk to that application? Does it need it? And if not, don't allow, right?
Yeah.
Now that piece of it, so you've got to achieve it in two way. One is you'll have to look at an application chart, an application connectivity chart. I call it the application dependency chart because it kind of shows you which application modules are connected to which application modules, right? Then look at the network and kind of segment the network accordingly, right? So this segment of the network will serve only this particular application or set of applications, right? Anything different, you block it till the time there is no business use for that. You kind of block it off, right? So and where can the networks be accessed from? Which application can access which segment of the network and vice versa is also equally important. It's just building up rules on the firewalls is surely not helping.
Yeah. Sir, looking ahead, what emerging trends or technologies do you foresee shaping the future of core networking strategies in financial institutions, and how does organizations prepare to adopt these kind of changes?
So I think SD-WAN, SASE, whether you want to call it
Okay.
SE or you want to call it SSE, I mean I'll leave it there, but either of the two. So SD-WAN, SASE, uh,
Mm.
obviously zero trust. Okay, now where you do the zero trust and how you do the zero trust, you can have multiple options, but zero trust is important. SDN on the core network, you know, SDN on the core network, and UEBA, which is user behavior analytics, and NDR. All this combined with identity and access management is where this will gradually move now, because it is very important that all these components that I mentioned may not be in a chronological order, but will have to kind of interoperate with each other to provide you that solid core that you are talking about, and not only solid core, a solid secured core that we are all wanting to build.
Sir, you touched upon it is a very big topic where we talk about IAM, right? So
Yeah.
there, see, what I've understood or seen is most of the time is you get into a situation where some of the accesses which are required are not to be given for everybody, and it is there.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you seen such scenarios? And
Yes.
if such is, there are instances where a resource has left, but his access is not removed across. There still remains on some of the elements that is not required. How do we see and how do we manage such situations, sir?
See, identity and access management is a very big topic. You've got to kind of
Topic.
look at in addition to, and I'm saying that when I speak about identity and access management, I'm also covering PIM and PAM along with it, which is privileged
Yeah,
identity management and privileged access management along with it.
access
Now,
management.
now, now, all that has to be worked in a service workflow. So, suppose for example, if I am an L1 engineer, I should be able to fire only L1 commands.
Hmm.
So right from the act, when someone is hired and onboarded, right from creation of that active directory to creation on the PIM-PAM to giving him access of what commands he will be able to fire, the policy of change your passwords every 60 days. You cannot use the last 10 passwords. All that will have to set in. And you will have to have a robust identity and access management system for that. I think uh, if I mean, I think gone are the days when this could have been done manually. I don't think it's possible, humanly possible to do it
Today,
today.
yes.
Yeah, impossible,
A
almost.
lot of systems.
Yeah.
While see, you are right in saying that there are a lot of systems which were not the same at the moment. What we see is management of those systems is not that easy while we had it on the physical
Yes.
infrastructure, because
Yes.
physical infrastructure we had only one piece. Now there are segmentation of servers. Our servers are across now as it is on the cloud. It depends on where your server is there, and the latency, everything is matched today. The service providers manage it very well on the
Yes.
latency part. uh, you have, sir, with this I have my pointers cleared with you. Any other pointers that you would like to add from a BFSI segment that you would like the audience to know more about, some kind of a case study or a
Yes, I
use
think
case
what
that
is
you would
very,
like to
yeah,
share?
what is very important with when we are building for a solid, when we are building for a solid secured network, what is very important is visibility and observability. Are you capable of tracking your assets? Do you know where are your assets? What firmwares are they running? What versions of hardware are they running? Where are they located? Right? And the monitoring piece of it. Not see, and when you say monitoring, one is health parameters, something like CPU, memory, etc. Right? Then there are performance parameters, which is what's the bandwidth utilization, what's the latency, what's the packet loss, etc. Right? Then there are capacity parameters. Do you know that in a data center you already have 90% utilization? If you have 90% utilization, what are you doing with it? What will you do with it? Repeat fault analysis. You have had instances thrice in a month where a CPU has hit 70%. What are you going to do with it? Has it triggered a fault ticket? Has it triggered a problem ticket in your system? Right. So, capability of service monitoring, not only hardware performance and health, service monitoring, BGP, in terms of load balancer sessions, in terms of certificates, all that are very important. Without which, I think whatever good you have, if you are not able to monitor and manage, I think there would be a problem. Over to you, Prem. Hi, Prem, you there?